Hi there, this is going to be a little Lightroom tutorial. I'm going to show you how to edit this photo into a slight fake film look, which is quite popular. I don't like to do that too strong because it is a bit of a fake effect, but we're going to do it in a way that's quite bright and got a bit of that film feeling to it. So just a little bit of information on this picture first. It was shot on a D600 with a 50mm 1.8G. It's a nice lens. It's fairly sharp. When I took this picture, the hat was very bright at the top up here, so I was careful that I didn't blow the exposure on this. That's why the skin's a little bit darker than I might normally like. Ideally, we would have perhaps used a bit of a reflector, got a bit of a catch light in the eye and brightened the skin slightly, but this was during a shoot. We'd stopped for coffee and we just grabbed some shots really quickly. So you could even use something like a newspaper or something to bounce some light in, but we literally had nothing. There's a little bit of light coming back up off the table, but that's all we've got. So I just tried to time a few shots to get something that was a nice pose or a nice expression, and I think we got that. I quite like the picture. So it's not really much of a problem to deal with in post-production. We can get through this quite quickly. So if we come over, we're looking in Lightroom now. If we look over at the top here, just in case you don't know, I'm just going to run through this really quickly. Look at where the histogram is. You see how I've exposed it? That we've protected the highlight area in the hat because it is popping up a bit at the top. That's probably over in the background, but we're not peaking too much on the right hand side. And as you hover the mouse over, you can see each part of the histogram which it's affecting. And we see that the whites are at the top, obviously, and highlights exposure, shadows, and then blacks. And when we pull the exposure, we're just brightening the midtones now, and this is Lightroom 5 that we're working in. So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to raise the exposure. I'm going to raise it quite a bit. We're going to go up to about 1.35 stops up, something like that, because what I'm looking at here is the skin. With the exposure, I'm using it to brighten the skin area, which is in the mid-tone range here, so we've got that. Now I know that because of how I shot it, that I can pull some more of this detail back from the hat if I want to, which I'm going to do now. So I'm going to bring my highlights down, and actually I'm going to bring them all the way down. You see, that doesn't make a huge change, but what it does is it just sort of evens out the exposure. You may choose not to do that, but it's what I want to do. I like to have that a bit of information in the highlights there in the hat. So I've brought that down. The next thing I'm going to do is just pop in a small amount of clarity. You can see what that does. It just gives a little bit more contrast and pop to the image. Something around 10, 11, that's okay. Now I've pre-made the curve so you don't have to watch me try to draw the curve out, but I'll switch this on for you. So the next, I'm not going to do anything else in the basic panel. There's not that much more to do. In the tone curve, I'll switch this on. You can see this is the kind of tone curve that I've drawn here. Yeah, so we've raised the black point and lowered the highlight point. If you can imagine taking out these two middle points, what we've done is raised the black point and lowered the white point, and then in the middle of that we've put a small S-curve to boost the contrast slightly. Now at first it's a bit shocking when we go from this to all that, and it looks quite strong. If it looks too much, you can pull down here on the black point and we can even it out a bit, but I'm going to leave it on fairly strong because it's a nice easy way. If you turn this into a preset, you can just come in and apply it and then pretty much just pull this down according to how much contrast you want. The other thing I did was a small amount of split toning. What split toning does is it puts colour into the highlights and shadow areas depending on what you want. And for this picture, you can see what I've done here. You can see the effect of it off and on. It's up to you whether you do it or not. It just gives you a slight cross-processed look. I've gone for these values: 43 in the highlights hue and 22 saturation, 208 in the shadows hue and 20 in the saturation. So you can see the difference that makes. You may prefer the before or the after, but what I'm doing is I'm showing you ways that you can custom play around with the colour toning of an image really simply. So here, that would be the image finished for me. It was as quick as that. It doesn't really take very long, does it? And you can turn that into a little preset that you can play around with. And my advice to you would be to maybe have a few different colour tone versions that you can apply. Maybe have 3 or 4 different colour tone versions that you can use. And now we can have a little look at the before and the after. and this is quite nice. It's got that sort of editorial magazine feel to it. If you wanted to, you could go down to the you can sharpen it if you want, but I wouldn't really do much with this kind of an image. I wouldn't bother sharpening it too much. I suppose the other thing you could do is you could come down to the grain and add some noise into it. Ooh, maybe not as much as that. Maybe something 20-ish gives you a nice little grain effect as well. You could make that into a separate preset, so you can have something like that. So let's have a. I think that's actually a little bit too much. But let me show you the before and after. So the backslash button gives you the before and the after. Before, after. Nice and simple. Before and after. Like that. I think that's a nice quick little edit. Just going to bring the noise down slightly. About 14? Yes, I think that's about right. Yep, and that's it. It's done. So I hope that's useful for you. Nice little Lightroom tutorial. Nice and quick film style edit for you.